Good morning and welcome to my channel. I'm Ashley and this is The Rural Companion. In today's video, I'm going to be making for you exactly what our family will be enjoying for breakfast on Christmas morning. We are making a savory egg and sausage breakfast roll. Let's go. First up, we will make our biscuit dough, which is going to be the roll or the bread portion of our savory breakfast roll. Now, most of the time cinnamon rolls are made with a yeast dough, which is light and fluffy. This time, one, because I wanted to keep things easy and quick, but also because I just don't want to take the time on Christmas Eve to make a dough and then let it rise proof and all of the steps for making cinnamon rolls, or the light and fluffy roll. I do plan on just using a quick biscuit dough. It will be a little bit more dense and a slightly different texture than your traditional cinnamon roll bread. And if you have time to do that, or if you're making this the day or two before and want to get it in your fridge, you could of course swap out the biscuit dough for your typical yeast dough. So for a biscuit dough in our food processor, we're going to put 1 cup of flour, a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 6 tablespoons of chopped or cubed butter. Now this one, it doesn't necessarily matter how big or small your cubes are, but you do want to go for a rough chopped butter so that it breaks down better in your food processor. Also, a typical stick of butter is 8 tablespoons or 1/2 of a cup. So the other 2 tablespoons I typically put into a cast iron skillet while it is preheating so that we have a nice rich and non-stick surface in our cast iron skillet. The butter will go into our food processor and we will pulse this so that we can get the fine, buttery, coarse crumbs that are typical for making pastry dough. Okay, that was really fast. Again, you're just looking for those coarse crumbs. It is going to be a flaky and buttery consistency. This part, it's okay to pulse or process a little longer, but once we add our sourdough, we do not want to over mix our dough, as that will make it tough or not as light and fluffy. So to our mixture, we're going to add 1 cup of bubbly and active sourdough starter. A couple more spins in the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can very easily make this recipe in your blender, or you can make it by hand. It's just a little harder by hand. That's it. You process just until the dough comes together, which is what we have. Once our dough has come together, and again, that's a really quick process time, and you're stopping as soon as the dough comes together, we're going to turn that out onto our counter. We can either press this flat by hand or use a rolling pin. I'm gonna see what works best. We're looking for a typical rectangle shape for our cinnamon rolls. If you're not familiar, or if this is your first time making cinnamon rolls, you're gonna wanna shoot for a long and then a shorter side, roughly 12 by probably 8 inches. I did go ahead and grab out a silicone pastry mat for working so that my dough does not stick to the counter. If you don't have one of these, you may want to use parchment or just flour your surface really well. A few things about our dough. Again, because it is a biscuit dough, it's not going to be as stretchy or as difficult to work with as your typical yeast dough that is normally used for cinnamon rolls. It also is going to, I don't know, pull apart almost when you are rolling. So do take care when you are rolling out your dough. Think of it more as a pie crust style dough and more of a dense dough, really. This one I did get to our rectangular shape. We're going to layer our savory ingredients now. I have some cooked scrambled eggs. I have some ground cooked sausage. And to make it a little festive, I have some red and green bell peppers and some onions. I did saute these ahead of time just for a few minutes so that they wouldn't be raw when I put them in. So let's get sprinkling. Before I roll up our savory cinnamon rolls, I like to do two things. Number one, I'll bring over my cutting device. This is just a pizza cutter. You could use a knife if you don't have a pizza cutter. You could potentially even use dental floss, which I've seen, or string. I've never had success with that, so if you have a tip on how to use the string to cut your dough, let me know in the comment section below. But I typically just use a pizza cutter, and that seems to work out fine for me. The other thing that I like to bring over and just have ready to go is my preheated cast iron skillet. Again, I have 2 tablespoons of butter in here, and that will just create a nice layer or base for our savory cinnamon rolls. So now we're gonna roll this up. We're using the long side to the other side. If you notice, I tried not to get too much food up here at the top so that we can kind of create a seal. If you wanted to sub out different ingredients, you could probably swap out bacon or ham for your sausage. The eggs probably would need to stay, but you could eliminate them if you wanted. You could, of course, top all of this with any variety of cheese that your family loves, and then we will go ahead and roll this up. And if your dough comes apart, you can kind of just give it a little pinch and it'll go right back together. So now we'll cut this in about 8 pieces. I know in my cast iron skillet, I can fit roughly 7 to 8 biscuits. So we'll shoot for about that much of our savory breakfast rolls. We'll carefully transfer each roll into our preheated skillet. And now we'll pop these in the oven on 350 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes or until the dough is golden brown. Okay, we just pulled our savory breakfast rolls out of the oven. They are golden and gorgeous. Of course, if we had used that typical yeast dough, they would be a lot puffier, but I think this will be perfect for a biscuity sausage egg bake of sorts. It will be great for Christmas morning. Most of the things like the sausage, the scrambled eggs, the sauteed onions, green and red peppers can all be made the day or the night before, or even 2 to 3 days before if time is short in your house. I wish you a very Merry Christmas and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.